we have returned.
Woohoo.
You're gonna want the book.
Yep.
Our book has been demolished
By
over
a
the past
Sigurd.
6 months by our dog, but it still works.
The inside is good, so.
I don't know why he likes books, but he does.
Books and leather. All right, well, I don't even know what episode number we're on, but
12.
welcome back to another Get Rek'd podcast.
Yeah. Flavor of the day, afterburner orange. I know you can barely see that. There we go. Anyway.
I can't have one this time of day or I'll be up till 1 a.m., so. All right, so we're starting on day 78.
Yep.
It says, love finds contentment, verse 1 Timothy 6:6. Godliness with contentment is a great gain.
Yeah, so one of the, they talk about a lot of things involving like, lust and greed. And I think I kind of see them almost in the same light, right? Like if you're greedy, you're lusting after something, I think lust tends to be more carnal, maybe, I suppose, is the purpose. But there's sort of a similar perversion and like, as C.S. Lewis would say, a bending of something that's good, right? Which is wanting to be able to provide and support and give aid to people, right? And having all the things you need so that you can do more and so that you can serve better and all of those things. That's all good, right? Having ambition is a positive thing. But it gets sort of perverted and bent into lust and greed. And those are kind of my thoughts on it. On the day, I don't have a whole lot for day 78. Except for just, talking about the dare itself, and then worried about, just, I guess my answer to that day was if you focus on love, if what you're doing is out of love, 100% out of love, right? Like not, because there's ways you can bend that too, right? With the focus being on God, then, you're probably moving in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
But.
So the day talked about anger quite a bit, and it made me pose the question of where does our anger come from? What is the motivation behind anger? And, asking yourself that when you come across situations that frustrate you, anger you, offend you, all those things, why? And where is it coming from? And usually it's a flaw in our own character. I mean, you could have someone being outright just rude and whatever, but even those sorts of things shouldn't actually upset us if we are, choosing love and in a secure place with ourselves and not acting in the spirit of offense and all of those things. So that was something that came to mind. Where is your anger coming from? And then I just wrote down that lust creates frustration and ungratefulness.
Yeah, and I think like the whole point of the contentment thing, right? There's so many different philosophies and ideas and ways to get there, right? And every single one, that leads to enlightenment or whatever you want to call it, is based around being content, finding a way to be content in the world, in life, right? And not lusting after things, not greeding after things, not being, getting easily angered by things or whatever.
I wonder if I'm going to hear your beard all entangled in your mic.
Oh, is it? Do I keep hitting it?
Oh, it's in your mic the whole time. You're looking at me. We'll find out, I guess.
I guess we got two, ports though, so.
Yeah, it'll be fine. I'm pretty sure it's happened before.
we'll move it to the side she wanted me to move it to originally. So I'm just being a turd. Here we go. We'll see how that works.
Anyways, so this week's dare says to choose to take a weekly day of rest and worship starting this week. Make a list of areas where you need to add margin to your schedule, then resolve to release anything not adding true value. So.
All right, so we are low energy today. It's no bueno. This video is going to be terrible.
I think it's fine. We're just chilling and talking.
The weather is like kind of gloomy.
Yeah.
It's been a rough few days. I was sick last week, for example.
It's been a busy month period.
Yeah.
So.
But
we're just.
So we need to increase the energy here.
Okay, I'll do my best.
Yeah, I know. That's the point of the Jocko, right?
So.
But yeah, so the dare, basically take a day of rest. Mm-hmm. You know.
That's also why I'm just chilling. Today is my rest day, and so I've just been
rest day where you make videos.
This is nice talking. I like it.
I know.
But I've been really soaking up the resting thing, and so I'm just feeling chill.
Yeah, that's fine.
But this is something that I have always needed to work on, so, trying to do that and make time for you and being home and the important things in life, as we'll talk about later, not just giving you my leftovers.
That was a funny day to go through, considering things we've talked about recently and stuff. Mm-hmm. I don't necessarily know if it's spiritual discernment or not, but it's funny how every time we come across, we've been over this section several times, right? And
yeah.
When we're finally making the video on it, we literally were just dealing with this issue, just kind of interesting. Mm-hmm. But anyway, that takes us to day 79. Love holds no grudge, and it gives us Ephesians 4:31.
All bitterness, anger, and wrath, insult, and slander must be removed from you, along with all wickedness.
So there's a couple thoughts I had here for this day, right? Which the holds no grudge thing, obviously, there are some things that I still have, if I get to thinking about them, they frustrate me.
Yeah. Well, I want to clarify on this day, none of it applied to us for me.
Yeah, same.
I thank the Lord, I feel like we have a really balanced relationship, and so in terms of grudges, this only applies to, friendships, family, that sort of thing for me.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is because we have a really good free flow of communication that they kind of talk about here on this day, right? Which is, hey, if there's something wrong, you need to talk about it, right? Don't keep it in, don't hold it in and wait for the next time you get into a massive argument to then, air out all of your grievances, right?
Yeah.
And I do think there's a difference between communicating something that, you're going through and complaining, right?
Yeah.
There are two very different things. Now, where that line is, I think is different for every individual in every situation. Because, and I think sometimes one of the bigger struggles for me is I don't want to come across as complaining, right? And so sometimes I will maybe not tell you soon enough, right? When I'm like, hey, I'm burnt out, or whatever. And it'll take me until, I'm kind of on the edge, and then I'm like, okay, I need to say something, because otherwise, I won't be, our communication lines aren't going to be as open as they need to be, right? And we won't be as balanced as we try to be, I suppose.
Yeah.
And so, like, but trying to decide when it's complaining and when it's not, I think is one of the harder parts for me. But when you're communicating with one another, it allows you to know where like your partner is, where you need their help, right? In carrying a burden or whatever. And by doing that, it keeps the resistance from being able to get in there and, hey, think about all these things that they don't do, right? And just building up this terrible and false, this lie about your relationship, right? Because you didn't choose to keep the communication open. You're instead choosing sort of to foster that, like, the evil wolf, right? Or foster that relationship with the resistance by not communicating with your spouse.
Yeah. I mean, this book has done such a good job of helping me. I mean, I feel like since we've moved here, I've done a lot better at not having so much of like a tootiness sometimes. And I think, it's just part of what we've gone through, going through this book, helping me realize that, like, the moments of when I get frustrated about little things that are literally nothing, like, God kind of like pings me in the moment and is like, just let it go. Like, why? I mean, because you never do anything that is like actually hurts me and stuff, like if I'm ever irritated, it's like something stupid, that's not even, it's not even like you did anything wrong or annoying. It's just something that, like, in the moment for me felt like an inconvenience is usually what it is. And I still have room to grow in that area, but like, because of this book and this being a door open to realizing that's wrong of me, like, God is able to continue to remind me of, like, no, you don't have the right to be upset right now. Like, just let it go. And I know that's not quite on topic with today, but when you were talking about that, it just made me think of that, and that I'm so grateful that we are doing this book, because I do think it has really helped. But getting back on today, it talks about how when you hold grudges or don't forgive or you hold on to these little things, it does make the other little things that person does seem so much bigger. Yeah. And, there's one situation in particular that I just, not with you, but with someone else, that I have just had such a hard time letting go of and moving on from. And there's so many things that person does that I feel like normally I wouldn't find irritating or wrong even, but because of that thing that I am having a hard time letting go of, it makes all those little things seem so much bigger and so much more annoying and whatever. And so
I wonder if it's the same person for us. I'm probably not going to talk about it on here, but
no, but it's, so it really does only hurt you. And I've for a long time been asking God to help me heal in this area, and so I'm mindful that it is a problem, and he needs to help me, because me just trying to do it by myself is not working and has not worked. So, but that's why it's so important to try to not hold on to grudges and let these little things build up and snowball.
Well, and I find, like, this is one of the things I wrote down, and they kind of talk about it on, in the book, but almost always when I think about the grudges that I hold, that I don't want to, so asking for prayers about all of those different things, right? Because I have they're grudges, right? I mean, by definition, they're grudges. I don't do anything negative with anybody, or whatever. But like,
your heart's just not in the right place for
yeah,
them.
and I still feel, offended, hurt by it, right?
Yeah.
And and feel like I need to correct something, right? And almost always it's because of something that, when you really break it down, it's something that I did, right? That was either misunderstood, that I never then corrected the misunderstanding, or, I probably could have handled that better, right? For whatever reason. And, they're not even super serious things, right? But it's little things where you're like, man, I wish I was a little more mature in that moment, right? I wish I would have understood a little bit better how I could have handled that situation or whatever. And in spite of, it genuinely probably is that some of these people aren't really awesome people, right? I think objectively, that I hold these grudges towards or whatever.
But we're still not choosing love, which is the
Right,
whole
exactly.
point.
And that's where and so that's, my struggle and, sort of what I was just handling earlier, right? Is, man, there's something I really need to do that I haven't done. It's totally not important. Nobody cares. The person doesn't even care, I'm sure. But it's something that's been on my heart for a very long time. And I'm like, you know what? I just need to do it and hope that, that's one of those things that I can let go of and sort of give, and that will help me. It's sort of my worldly action in order to help my spirit sort of release those same sort of grudges and, whatever. So any of you watching, I know there's not a whole lot of you, but that's okay.
Hey, Mom.
But, your prayer is greatly appreciated in this. I have a lot of things that my last few years in my old job are really hard. And, I still harbor some grudges from there. I've got grudges from the beginning and early days of my, career and stuff like that too, that I don't really think about all those things very often, but when I do, they do sour me, they sour the mood. And they're things that I want to get, I want to give to God. And so that was something I was sort of thinking about through this.
I gotta change my angle here. The table leg is cutting into my leg. Okay. Shall we read the verses?
Yeah, so then it, tells us to read Hebrews 12, 14 through 15, and sort of figure out what we should and should not do with grudges, and what does it mean.
It says, make every effort to live in peace with everyone and to be holy. Without holiness, no one will see the Lord. See to it that no one falls short of the grace of God, and that no bitter root grows up to cause trouble and defile many. And we're reading the New International Version. No, what is it?
Yeah, I think you are.
Oh.
NIV. I think you're probably reading the NIV.
Yeah. Why'd you laugh at me? You made me think I said the wrong thing.
Oh, no, not at all.
We went to Bible study last night, and everybody was reading different versions, and it changes quite a bit.
Yeah, it does. Mm-hmm.
So I was just letting the people know.
No, so the reason why I chuckled wasn't because it wasn't that you did anything wrong or weird. It's just funny because I was, me, I like watching stuff about etymology and and breaking down translations and stuff like that. And so it was just kind of funny how you brought that up, given that there were some context in our, Bible study last night as well. Same thing, and then also just some of the things I was watching and learning about, Jesus and the Son of Man side of things, and how different translations read that differently, and how the certain words actually modify and help you to understand better what all that means. So it was just kind of funny because it's pertinent to something I was learning about today. You saying that specifically.
It says, who are you to be at peace with according to this passage? Everyone. How diligent should you be looking to identify if any bitterness is in your life? Very diligent. If you're bitter, who do these verses say will be defiled by it?
Everybody.
Many. Yeah. On to day 80.
Everybody
Love
going down.
forgives. Colossians 3:13. Accepting one another and forgiving one another if anyone has a complaint against another.
I mean, this is just a direct extension of day 79, right?
Yeah.
Don't hold grudges, forgive people, right? You've got to be honest. That way things don't become grudges, right? So many of the things that I have problems with are because I didn't bring them up at the time, right? Or I didn't, work on communicating properly at the time.
Yeah.
And I think it all just comes back to reflection. We've talked about this, a bunch in our podcast, right? Because I think it's probably one of the most important tools in my toolkit is reflection and being able to, look back and go, this is the real problem, right? Because so many times we'll be talking or we might think, I'm like, man, that really bothered me, right? And that frustrated me. And then I'm like, wait, that's not what frustrated me. It was actually this thing, but that,
Allowed this to
Right.
then frustrate me.
Right.
When normally it wouldn't.
And once you figure that out, those things don't bother you as much anymore. The resistance doesn't have the ability to sort of, gather and build around those initial problems, which is why communication is so important. I think,
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of, I think being able to talk to somebody is incredibly important because sometimes it's hard to figure out those problems by yourself, right? But if but that's why we have that's one of the greatest blessings of having a wife that you can trust and that is, the goal and the focus is in the same direction, right? When you have a group of people, or why a community matters, right? When you have a group of people that are all moving in the same direction and have the same goals, then you can, you're able to, hey, this is what I'm going through, this is what I'm struggling with, or whatever, and they're able to help you sort of reflect and find that better understanding of yourself and, get beyond some of those things that may be keeping you from being able to forgive.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's kind of similar to yesterday or to the day before for me. I just put unforgiveness causes overreactions. And love doesn't dwell on things. I put to read something, but I keep skimming through and I'm like, I don't know what I wanted to specifically read here, but I do like the line that says reactions then become overreactions and cause your mate to second guess your logic and sense of fairness. I think that's really true. When you are overreacting to situations regularly, they're like, what is going on with you? What?
well, that's super pertinent to some stuff we're going through right now, right?
Yeah,
Like,
not together again, but, or with one another.
Right.
We are going through it together, but it's involving other people.
overreactions, and then looking at that and going, oh, my mustache hair. Mustache is going into my nose. The overreactions then make us go, where's the logic here, right? It actually makes it impossible to have a conversation at all. The communication lines don't exist because
Yeah.
the
Especially when
overreaction.
there's just so much offense there built up, and you can't think logically when you are acting in the spirit of offense, or
Yeah.
when you are, reacting based on past experiences that you have built up in your head so much and that you have like, you're sticking to your guns on your opinion or whatever on that. And so when it comes to situations in that same realm, you overreact and everyone on the outside is like, this makes no sense, you know, and you can't even logically explain or reason.
Well, and then your ego gets even further in the way, and then you double down.
Yeah.
And because you're like, wow, I was stupid, but now I have to try to find a way to prove that I was stupid or that I wasn't stupid, you know, or whatever. And that can destroy
Well,
things.
yeah, I think when people start to try and be logical with you, you realize a little bit, but that offense is so big that you don't let that door open to, you know, accepting, oh yeah, this doesn't make sense or whatever. You just shut the door even harder and, you know, puff up your chest even bigger.
And blame them for the thing that you continue to, like, you know,
have a problem with,
right.
but won't talk about.
Yeah, you know, and this is actually, it's kind of interesting because I'll talk to you about it, not on camera, sorry guys, but this is very similar to another like issue we have, you know, in our life. Just, you know, offense and because of different decisions that people are making and stuff like that, that then like make it hard for any of us to, you know, understand one another. And it closes all those communication channels that we wish we had, you know, or whatever.
Now I'm not sure who we're talking about. Anyways,
but,
sorry,
you
got
know,
off
I mean,
on a little.
It's so interesting how when you won't forgive, when you refuse to give any sort of forgiveness, right, those communication lines do close. And even if there's never been anything that anybody did wrong, like, and all anybody's tried to do is, you know, be there, right? You can decide that they, you know, that lacking forgiveness, other people's issues, right? The whole, we're talking about Hebrews, you know, 12, 14, 15, that hurts everybody, right?
Yeah.
It hurts many.
Yeah.
Even though it has nothing to do with anything that, you know, many of those people did. That one grudge that you have with X individual now causes you to have grudges and issues with many others.
Yeah.
And that's very sad. And I think that's an interesting thing to look at too with the rest of, you know, I'm looking at my grudges now, thinking about it here in this conversation.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, okay, what happened here that caused me to be this, you know, are there other things, are there other grudges or parts of me
Yeah.
that are upset because of those things?
It is interesting because when you hold a grudge, it's almost like there's this lens now, and if you see anybody who at all fits that kind of lens in any way, then you start to like pick out the faults and similarities between the thing that you have a major problem with or major grudge with, and even though that person has nothing to do with what happened at all.
Well, and maybe and you don't give them a chance, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, how often do we do that with all kinds of things in life, right?
Yeah.
And how often do people end up doing that to, I think that's another reason why we have to be very careful with our responsibilities as Christians as well, right? To be loving, because that one time you may be the thing that colors somebody's whole perception of everybody else. And, you know, I mean, like, you want to talk about being a father, right? Being a father is a representation, a worldly representation of God the Father, right? So if you're a bad dad, how much are you hurting other people's, you know, your children's relationship or whatever? If you're a bad husband, like, you know, all those things matter.
Yeah.
And it's a responsibility to, you know, because you don't want to, how sad is that you could turn somebody away from their salvation because of one mistake where you didn't choose to love them, right?
Yeah.
So,
Shall we move on to day 81?
yes, I don't have a whole lot for day 81 at
Okay.
all.
Well, this is kind of my day because this is what I am not good at. So, not that I usually have a lot to say anyways, but.
Oh, geez. Love adds margin. Exodus 18:18.
You will certainly wear out both yourself and these people who are with you because the task is too heavy for you. So yeah, today is just about not giving your spouse your leftover time, and same thing with God, like letting your life, putting too many things on your plate and letting your life take over your relationship with or letting your life dictate how much time you have for your relationship with your spouse and also with God. And, it's something that I've had to work on and am continuing to work on. And it definitely takes communication. I mean, unfortunately, I'm oblivious to when I'm not giving Lars enough love, and so it builds up for him and then turns into a conversation, and then I feel horrible, and it's a cycle that just keeps happening because
Ray's problem is Ray just loves people so much, and she cares so much for people and wants to do all the things all the time, and it's beautiful. It's one of the things I love about her so much. But yeah, sometimes I'm like, hey, I'm here, and I'm so glad that you have spent your energy, that you are helping people and all of that. But can I get some time too, or whatever?
Yeah.
But you're not the only one who has this problem in this relationship, though. Like when I get to working, I think a big part of it is that, like, my old job, everything else was secondary, and I'm not so sure how well our relationship would have succeeded had I, continued in that world, just because, it took everything, right? And I was so focused in it. And I mean, to the point that God was even second, right? Like I would say, or I thought, part of me thought that I was doing it all for God, right? But the reality is I wasn't. The new idol became my work, right? And so I think we all run into this, right? We all don't take time. We all don't take do the dare for this week and find a day to take a day off. Like that didn't exist for me. I didn't, I've kind of been forced into some of that, like, with my injury and some of the work that we do now and stuff like that. Like there are plenty of days where I'm sort of forced to, stand by, right? Be patient.
Yeah.
So I don't think, like, you're not the only person who has this problem in our relationship. I think it's just, you are much more, like, the things that you put your energy into are much more, like, available currently, right? And so that's what you're doing. And versus, like, me, the things that sort of my heart and my soul sort of attached to aren't as available, and I'm kind of, forced to
You're in a waiting game right now.
Right.
Yeah. A tip that I liked, which is very obvious, and I don't even know if you can call it a tip, but it says say no to less important opportunities. And this is something that's already been on my mind before we even came into reading this week, and trying to be mindful of, just a little bit more mindful of where I'm giving my time and myself, and trying to, where is God actually calling me to, and what are things that like I'm putting on me as a responsibility when really it's not on me, and I need to just let that go and, you know, not kind of carry that weight around. And then the other thing I put was to make sure you actually talk and pray with your spouse. And it really is beautiful how much of a connection it helps create, and how much more of a bond praying with your spouse is, even though I feel like when we pray, I'm literally just rattling on and on and on and on.
It's good, because I'm like, you know, I go, God, you know what's in my heart. I'm going to forget things. Thank you. Amen. Right?
And I'm like, dear Heavenly Father, I want to pray for so-and-so, and then so-and-so, and then so-and-so, and then so-and-so.
It's
and
good,
I just
though.
keep
That's
going
why-
and going and going to whoever
Yeah.
pops in my brain.
But that's the, you know, I mean, that's why God, like, puts us together, right? Is just, we're two sides of the same coin, and we create a complete coin, right?
I always wonder, like, what you're feeling when I am, like, in my pausing moment of, like, is there another person who's gonna ping in my head next? And I'm waiting, and I'm wondering if you're like, is she done? Or, like, what's going through your head in that pause?
A lot of our prayers together, when you're, like, you know, praying out loud, and I'm just there with you, I'm just praying to, okay, yeah, empower her prayer, right? Like, I'm here for it too.
I just do the long, and...
Standing by.
Yep, standing by while the wheels are turning. Okay, prayer for day 81. Lord, help me to balance out my time to include quality time with you and with my spouse. Teach me to become a wise steward of the time you have given me.
I think
I didn't do day 84.
that's okay.
Maybe I just
We're not
don't
there
have
yet.
much. We're not?
No, we're on day 82.
Oh, I thought you meant we're not doing it. Anyways, yes, day 82.
But yeah, so I mean,
What's
it's all about
wrong, buddy?
priorities, right? Oh,
You just dropped a lot of dirt from your face.
so day 82, love requires rest, and gives us Exodus 29 through 10.
You are to labor 6 days and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God.
So my key points on here are, this doesn't mean a day to get all your chores done.
That was intentionally aimed at me.
No, I mean, that's true for just about everybody, right? Like, how many days do we go, oh, I finally have a day off, right? So I'm going to get all the things done that I know I need to get done, that I've been putting off because they weren't a priority compared to, like, work or whatever, right? The point is, like, one of the things that's sort of cool about, like, you know, hyper-Orthodox, like, people is taking the Sabbath very, very, very seriously, right? And being like, no, it's a day where we're going to sit down, and we're not allowed to do all the stuff that would take up our time, you know, that would take up our energy and thoughts and whatever. We're going to sit, and we are going to, what? Oh, yeah.
Pookie.
There's our dog, Brew. But, you know, taking a day where he's a huffer.
Yeah,
That's
that's
how
how
he
he
communicates.
communicates.
Oh, buddy, you're gonna mess up the mic. Watch out, dude.
Spooky.
All right. Hey. Hi. You go
His
lay
name
down.
is Brew, but one of his nicknames is Spook, Spooky, Pookie, Pooka, Pookadook.
He's got a million
Tootie.
nicknames. Yeah. Anyway. you've got like, taking a very pertinent day where all you can do, because you're bored otherwise, right, is focus on prayer, focus on looking at, and enjoying the amazing things that are all around you, right? Your family, your friends, nature, the environment, right? Whatever. And appreciating them, because you don't have time, you're not like able to watch TV or, do work, all those things. And I find that really fascinating. And I wish part of me wishes I had the amount of, discipline to do that. But sadly I don't. Maybe I need to fix that. You guys tell me. But, I think it's an important thing to, yes, take some time, really do focus on it, because I think all too often.
But I do feel like rest looks different for people. Like,
no, absolutely.
There's only so much I can just.
No, so a funny thing while I was, giving my little comment about a day of rest does not mean getting all the chores done in the house, is I literally was thinking, but for Ray, she likes doing things like vacuuming, which is mind-boggling to me, but so it's one of those things that does really sort of give you, time, and that's where you do spend some time thinking, and praying and worshiping. And so for you, it's not a chore, right? So I think that's the difference.
Yeah, that's
is
fair.
like, it's not a day to do chores. It's a day to, do the things that
allow
give
you to
time
think about
with
God and worship.
Right.
And that looks different for everybody, how that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's true. I just put, when you actually allow yourself to rest, your home in general will just have more peace. And it is actually easier to prioritize your life when you know, okay, this is going to be my rest day, rather than fiddling around and wasting time on social media or watching TV or whatever. You prioritize the things that you need to get done so that you can truly do the restful things on your rest day. And so, it has its advantages there. And then...
Well, I don't know why that makes me think of, one of Jordan Peterson's 12 rules or whatever, which is have one room in your house that is absolutely beautiful. And the whole concept is, like, if everything's always chaos around you, that's going to be your brain, right? And having one place that's beautiful, that's, relaxing or whatever, can help you to really focus on the things that are important.
Yeah,
And
that's
to
why our
feel-
old house was such a struggle, because it was so tiny. There was no place to put anything. And so even if it was organized clutter, it still just felt like clutter.
Yeah.
And so I'm so thankful for this house, because we have room, and like this room is my favorite room. We're able to keep it open and, more minimal.
You guys can't see it, but there's some beautiful windows.
Yeah,
that look
that's what
out
I'm
onto
looking at.
the mountain and the valley. And but I think that's part of it, right? Like, you can't have, if your whole world is cluttered, you're not going to be able to rest.
Yeah.
Right? So, it takes some
And if
time.
you're always like half effort into all your things, it's making you have to always be doing all the things and always half thinking of all the things. And so rather than just going 100%, being organized, making sure you know what you're going to be executing, like your brain's always going to be kind of everywhere.
I was like, what are these? They're pieces of the book.
Oh, yeah, I was wondering too, what keeps,
Sorry, I'm not meaning that.
Shall we move on to
Yeah,
day
day
83?
83. Love refuses to worry. And it gives us Mark 4:19.
The worries of this age, the seduction of wealth, and the desires for other things enter in and choke the word, and it becomes unfruitful.
This is super important, I think, especially in like the community who's probably would ever watch anything that we're putting out. Is so many people, ourselves included, right, get caught up in all the chaos and crap of the world.
Yeah.
And worried about it and like, oh man, I can't believe this is happening. I mean, and it's warranted, and I totally understand. But
And you
how
shouldn't
much time-
remain in the dark either.
Right. But then how much time are you now spending worrying about that thing? And the definition of worry is a mind divided, right? So how much time are you dividing your attention away from the things that are important, like your friends, your family, your relationships, your community, and then more importantly than all of that, God, right? And focusing on that thing that's totally negative and you really don't have any impact on anyway, outside of what you can do in your community, right? Outside of what you can do in your church. And so those are the ways you change things for the better, right? And so I think it's really important and pertinent to sort of, that Mark 4:19 right here, right? Don't get stuck in those worldly things. And really, at the end of the day, kind of remember, like, what's the worst that can happen, right? The worst that can happen in all reality is you die.
Yeah.
And then all the worry's gone. So why are you spending time worrying about it?
Yeah. Well, I like how the book says, even though we don't often think of it this way, it is true. If you're worrying, you're not actually trusting God.
Yeah.
And, I imagine that hurts his feelings a little bit or something.
Oh yes, I'm sure he has a spirit of offense.
But, worry ultimately does keep us from serving God. Worry is based in fear, and fear is not from the Lord. And so the more you let yourself get consumed and wrapped up in those things, I imagine it affects your discernment and communication with God. And so...
Well, it's like the grudges stuff, right? It cut everything from there, right? All your worries, like, you look at everything else through that lens, right? So maybe an interaction that might have been really wonderful, and maybe you could have brought somebody to God, right, is now shaded by this worry that you have. And so instead of, going all in on just being loving, right, you're doing this half-butted thing, right? And and maybe you even give the wrong impression, because of that grudge. That's kind of what I think. That's why it's in this week, right? Is worry is directly related to those grudges and those, sort of issues of lust and greed and so on. It gave us Psalm 118:6. What that was in the...
It's just, the Lord is for me, I will not be afraid.
Yeah, so, I mean, that whole phrase, like, that's something I say to myself, maybe not those exact words, but, it's what I use all the time. It's what I used when we were buying this home, right?
Yeah.
Which is, of all the terrible things that could happen, like, I just got to trust God because everything's going in the right direction. There's too many things for this to just be coincidence, right? And I'm just going to trust that God's going to take us in the right place. And so that's kind of what I liked about it.
Also gave us Luke 10:38 through 42. Let me get there. As Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said, but Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, "Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me." "Martha, Martha," the Lord answered, "you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better and will not be taken away from her.
It's funny that this is, this comes up. Because we've had conversations about that very verse, not even related to what we're reading here. But how quickly we can get focused on things that don't matter at all, right? Like, is that Mary Magdalene, right? For example, everybody gets kind of caught up in that. That's literally in Bible study last night. That was something that people got caught up in, and it doesn't matter. I don't really know if it matters, right? The story is the same regardless, which is have faith, right? And focus on God. Don't focus on all the other things.
Yeah.
Right. So day 84 is love rejoices in the Lord, and it gives us Philippians 4:4.
Rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again, rejoice.
They basically just talk about, this is sort of the answer to worry, right? Which is find the beautiful things, find the good in just about everything.
Yeah.
And, we have seen that in some of the things that we've sort of alluded to throughout, this podcast that we've been struggling with. There have been some beautiful, beautiful things that have happened as well.
Yeah.
Right? And there is so much peace and so much solace that comes. I almost think it's probably one of the most immediately obvious blessings that we can get, right? Is when we look at these bad situations and we go, but man, this was great. And you're like, you know what? As much as all of this sucked, that was good.
Yeah.
And it's one win, right? All that stuff that sucked, did it really matter because we had that one win, right? And
yeah, we've actually been having that happen a lot lately, I feel
that's our freaking, that's our whole life, right?
Yeah.
All kinds of really, and I think that's one of the reasons why, like, Ray is such a blessing, is that you are very much able to do this alongside me, right? I think it's one of the ways that I cope with a lot of stuff, and, you do it very much the same, and when I'm missing it, you help me see it, and, vice versa, and I think, that's really great, and something that you can hopefully do with your spouse, right, is if you're, missing the forest for the trees, or whatever the phrase is.
I have no idea.
Then, you're getting caught up in all the other things. Try to help your spouse see the beautiful stuff, the good things, right? Because we've had a lot of times where it's like, holy crap, can we get another bad thing that happens in this short period of time?
Yeah.
And we're drained and we're sucking and we're not having a good time. And then we're like, but at least this, right? I mean, my old job, it was the next time I get chow, right? Like, oh man, that was my biggest thing. So, and I think those lessons and the way that we have taken them in, that's what Philippians 4:4 is about, right? Which is, hey, rejoice.
Yeah.
Understand that God is like, take a moment and just rejoice. Be happy about this.
Can I read a part from it?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I really like this little section. More than that, the Greek word for rejoice in this verse carries a present active tense. It is an activity of mind and heart to be done right now and to continue being done from this moment forward. And I just think that's so cool that, God has intended for us to always be rejoicing.
Well, and that's how you find contentment, right? Because you see all the good things, and now all that bad stuff, who cares, right? And I think that's it. That's the answer. I'm glad you read that. Because here's the thing. All the bad stuff in the world, all the things we could be worried about, we know what the end looks like, right?
Well, and we know that God is fighting alongside us. Like, no matter what is going on, even if we can't see, He is working for us, and He's listening to us, and He's there with us. And just that alone is reassuring.
Well, and that's the thing that we call Pendragon tactics, right? Which is like, it's a reference to C.S. Lewis book anyway. Prayer. God is handling it. Trust in God. Have faith, right? Won't get into faith and what that means, but support God, with your prayers, your thoughts, your, everything. And it's going to get handled. All of the bad things, there's so many. The history of mankind is a history of terrible things that end up becoming wonderful, right? That God fixes or takes this really bad thing and shows you just how much more beautiful the world can be. I mean, that's the crucifixion, right?
Yeah.
Like the absolute worst thing possible to the absolute best.
Yeah.
And because of that, we have the absolute most beautiful form of love, right?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what it's all about. It gives us some questions, so
Yep.
maybe we can answer those. I don't know, or you can just read them. It's up to you.
What is the track record of worry in your life? I feel like I used to be a lot more of a worrywart. I still worry about things, but getting better for sure.
Oh, I mean, I've been a worrier my whole life, like just always being a planner, always trying to solve things, always, trying to make sure that I'm on top of the ball all the time. Uh-oh.
Don't stir the pot. Good boy. How about I just read them off for the people?
Yep.
How often have the things you've worried about failed to happen? So like, how often do they not actually even happen?
All the time.
Compare this to God's track record of faithfulness. Who should you trust in the future? Like, should you trust your worry, or should you just trust that God has your back, which is majority of the time.
Right.
So
Worry, dividing your mind, that's the resistance, trying to keep you from love and God, right? So
yeah,
anyway.
we made it.
Yeah.
Woo!
Hopefully we're, I'm not going to make any promises.
Yeah, we'll try our best.
We'll see you on week 13. But anyway,
yeah.
Thanks for joining us. Please leave us any thoughts or ideas that you have that'll help us grow. And anybody else who may read what you have to say and make it a good day. Get wrecked.